Happy waving Wednesday. Whoops, I wasn't supposed to put that button. It's a little elevator music for you, anyone who's watching. Well, welcome to the inaugural episode of the middle school STEM teacher classroom. What I'm hoping this stream to be is a place for middle school STEM teachers to connect, to build a community of middle school STEM teachers, to talk about what's going on in the classroom, to get help, to get advice. I want to talk about some of the videos that I end up posting on Sundays. Hello, Adriana. Good to see you. I want to talk about the videos that I post on Sundays, maybe do some deeper dives, maybe share some stories, but really a place to support my fellow middle school STEM teachers in the work that they are doing. And I also wanted this to be a place where in my teacher business last year, I started deciding like I want to take some money that I'm getting from my teacher business and put a portion of it aside for supporting education in some regard. But a lot of times I didn't really know what that would look like, what that meant. And so I had this like little fund that was growing. It wasn't growing a ton, but it was growing. And then I thought as I was getting ready to kind of start this show, this middle school STEM live show, like this could be a really cool opportunity to give back to other middle school STEM teachers. And so a part of this show, I also want to actually be giving to a Donors Choose Middle School STEM classroom. So I'm trying to support middle school teachers in the insights and the tutorials, and also support them financially, at least until my little give fund, EduGive fund, maybe runs out or something like that. And so I'll be doing that likely at the end of the show. And whenever people are here, if they have a Donors Choose and they are a middle school STEM teacher, and they have a request for something in their classroom, I would like to donate $50, around $50 to a middle school STEM classroom on Donors Choose each time that we do this show. And so we'll do that at the end, and then we'll see how it goes. And I don't know how long I'll be able to do it because there's not a ton of money in my little education give fund, but we'll see how it goes. I thought for this inaugural episode that we could kind of talk about a little bit about what got me to the middle school STEM classroom. How did I get to where I am today in the middle school STEM classroom? And to do that, we kind of have to backtrack a little bit to when I was in college in 2010. I studied audio engineering, which might be somewhat obvious based on the microphone here that I'm using and the headphones and the cameras and the multiple angles that I have going on. I studied audio engineering, but I did not want to be someone who worked in a music studio. I didn't want to do something that I saw my peers were doing. A lot of them were going out to work in music studios for free, interning. Maybe something good would happen. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And most of the work that I did in college, I enjoyed my own projects, but I didn't really want to go down the path of audio engineer. And so what ended up happening is I was dating who is now a woman who's now my wife, Sarah, and I knew that I wanted to get married. And so when I left college, I was like, well, there's a few things pointing me to teaching. I led a Bible study for international students when I was part of a Christian ministry on campus, and I remember that a lot of the students that came weren't Christians, and I remember I would actually print out whatever part of the Bible that we were talking about, because the students that came were just curious about, like, what does the Bible say and what do Christians believe? And I would print it out in Chinese, I would print it out in Japanese, I would print it out in Turkish, and then people would be able to read whatever we were studying in their own native language to be able to contribute whatever thoughts they had on what we were talking about. And like looking back on that now, I was like, wow, I was differentiating for the people and the students that were in the Bible study, and little things that I was teaching in small ways when I was in college, and I was like, maybe I could be a teacher. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and do my teacher certification, an alternative certification, because I got my bachelor's in audio engineering. I didn't study education. And so I thought, well, let me go through an alternative certification. What do I want to actually get certified in? And I thought I like math. But I kind of also like the middle school years. And so I decided to get what's called a generalist 4 through 8, where I could teach math, science, social studies, or English language arts in grades 4 through 8. I was like, well, that kind of has the math and the science in there for the middle school. I guess I could teach English language arts or social study if I needed to, but I also saw that it might be the biggest opportunity for getting a job is like having more opportunities to teach more things besides just like high school math or something like that. Plus, I started looking at some of the high school math, and even though I did well in math and through high school, everything, I was like, this is really hard. Like the test that you would have to take to become a high school math teacher. And so I was like, well, I think I'll focus on the middle years, the middle grades. And then I ended up also taking a test to do early childhood through 12 technology applications. So I could be a technology teacher, which probably isn't much of a surprise there. And I also got certified in speech, 7th grade through 12th grade speech, which also may not be a surprise there, being that I like to talk and I'm on the internet and I talk all the time and go on podcasts and stuff like that. And so I ended up getting certified, and then at the same time I began substitute teaching. My very first day of substitute teaching was an 8th grade math class in Belton, Texas. And I got there, and the lady at the front desk directed me. She's like, you're going to be subbing for this teacher. Go down there. Here's a map of the school. And the classroom was a mess. There were desks, there was papers and books piled everywhere. And I was looking around, I was like, I think there's supposed to be plans for me. I think there's supposed to be like things. Oh, my camera's not working. That's okay. I think there are supposed to be things here that are supposed to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And I was looking around, and there was stuff written on the board, but I was like, that kind of looks like it might have been written yesterday. And so I was confused. I didn't know what I had to do. And so the teacher actually was at school. They were doing like in-service and meeting as a team. And she comes like, and she says, okay, they're actually working on page 47 in the workbook. They're a great group of kids. They're just a little chatty. And so I was like, okay. And I remember going in there. It's like, okay, even though I'm the substitute teacher, I'm going to do my best to connect with these kids. And I am going to, maybe I'll even really connect and change the life of one student. This is my first day of substitute teaching in 2011. And the kids just walked all over me. I remember the power struggle of a girl saying, I need to go to the bathroom. And I was like, well, you need to get your work done. She's like, are you saying you can't go to the bathroom? I can't go to the bathroom? It's like, well, you really need to get your work done. You haven't gotten any work done. It's, oh my gosh, she's not letting her go to the bathroom. And the kids were just ganging up on me. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I was just walking around, and kids were talking and not working, but I just didn't know what to say. So I just kept walking around. I'm like, okay, well, everyone have a good day. And I remember lunchtime came, and I just sat there at this table that's just a disaster, and books and papers everywhere. And I just couldn't even eat my lunch. I was exhausted from just being walked all over all day, not knowing what to do. Every single thing, I'm like, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but I don't know what to say or what to do. And I remember going onto Facebook, and I looked for a teacher, a 9th grade teacher that I had that I was a jerk to. And I emailed her and I said, Miss Otot, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your class 7 years ago, and I was a jerk. And I'm so sorry for being rude. I'm so sorry for being a jerk to you. Hey, what's up, Chris? Good to see you, man. Glad I could see this before my next class. Good. And I never heard back from Miss Otot, but I just could not, I did not know what to do. The rest of the day was just as bad as earlier in the day. But I eventually just tried to talk to some kids that looked like they were kind of working. And so I continued to substitute teach. I didn't substitute teach just in the middle school classroom, but I went all the way down to kindergarten and up to seniors in high school just to kind of get some experience there. And I remember my last real subbing job, and it was a long-term subbing position. And it was for a teacher that they were letting go. at the end of the year, the last 3 weeks of school. The principal just was like, I can't deal with this anymore. This guy's classroom management is terrible. I'm always having to come up to his room. And so the principal asked me, would you want to do a long-term subbing and finish out the school year for that teacher down the hall? And I was like, oh my gosh, sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe I'll get a job out of it. And I remember almost going back into a room because I was subbing for a different teacher that day. Went back into the classroom. It was my off period. And I remember having like an anxiety attack because I was like, that class has not had any direction, any structure all year long. They've seen me as the substitute this year, and I'm going in the last 3 weeks of school. This is going to be very hard. I remember I spent the entire weekend. I talked about this in one of my recent videos on classroom management, but I remember the entire weekend I just was just consuming YouTube videos and websites all about like, how do you actually manage a group of middle schoolers? And the experience was okay. But when I went in there, and like, I remember the first day I was like, we're going to try all these new routines and everything. And they worked for a little while, but then the kids were like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I remember one student, let's call him Michael. Michael, like one of the first days, he was just yelling out, and so he was cussing, and he ended up getting a referral, and so he had in-school suspension, and so he missed like the first week of school. And I told him that he had to meet with me after school to get a little bit caught up. I was trying to see if my other camera was working, but it's not. And he comes after school, and he starts trying to get caught up. He's got to retake a quiz. And so for the students, I told them to retake the quiz, they have to copy down the words on that they're on the quiz. And then whatever they copied down, they could use that when they retake their quiz. It wasn't the most meaningful reassessment assignment, but I was like, I want them to do a little bit of work before they actually take the reassessment. And so he's like, can't I just take the retest with this copy of the vocab? And I was like, no, you have to put the work in, you have to write it down. And then he's like, I don't have time for this. And then he just leaves and he slams the door, and I walk out and I'm like, Michael, you can't let your anger get a hold of you like this. You can't let your anger cause you to do things in frustration, to slam doors. You gotta learn how to manage that anger. And he doesn't say anything. And I wasn't mad at him. I was just trying to tell him, like, you can't just keep acting like this. He doesn't say anything for a while, and then I just say, okay, I'll see you later. I'll see you later, Michael. And he says, Mr. Gibson, can I still take my reassessment? I was like, yeah. So he comes in and he's trying to get back to work, and he's still really frustrated because he doesn't want to copy down these words. And so he starts copying it. And he's like, can't I just use this list of words on the reassessment? Why do I have to copy it? I was like, you got to put the work in. And then he starts cussing under his breath because he's frustrated. And I was like, please don't swear in the classroom, Michael. And he's like, I know, you make me so mad though. It was kind of funny because it was actually like it was a good tension, even though he was frustrated. So he takes a while, he finishes it, and then he's getting ready to take his test, and he's like, I can't even like read my own handwriting. And I look, and it's like, it's pretty bad handwriting. And so I start wondering, like, looking back on it now, I'm like, he possibly had dyslexia. And so like this actual process of copying down something on one paper onto another was actually pretty challenging for him, as it can be for students with dyslexia. And so I'm like, okay, well, you copied it down, you did the work. I'll go ahead and let you use this actual copy of the notes, and take your time when you take the reassessment. So he takes his time, and then he turns it in. And I grade it right there. And it's just me and him in the classroom because it's after school. And he gets a 100. I make a little 100, and I turn it into a little smiley face. And I was like, okay, well, Michael, from what I gather, you're a smart guy, but you're lazy and you don't want to put the work in. Would you say that's true? And he's like, yeah, I guess that's true. And then he says, I tell him, I was like, well, we can work on that. We can work on that. All right. And then he's like, okay. And I was like, I will see you tomorrow. And he said, thank you. Like, he said, thank you is a very genuine thank you. And the next day, like, I remember I went back this week to look at this story. I write in a journal pretty often, and I wanted to make sure I got a lot of the details right. One of the details that I wrote in there, and this was 2011, was that the next day he said, "Hey, Mr. Gibson," when he came in, which seems like so like not important, like a not important detail, but like at that stage, like when you're getting kids that are just now starting to say, "Hey, Mr. Gibson," or "Bye, Mr. Gibson," or something like that, like that's huge, because that's like showing like they are making an actual effort to even connect with you in even the smallest of ways. And so he came in and he actually was starting to work that whole, like that first week, and everything that I had seen of him that year when I was subbing for other classes, he just never worked. And he started to work in class. And he, one of the days, he just yelled out like, "Man, what the hell?" And he looked at me and he's like, "I mean, what the heck?" And I remember, and like even looking back on that journal entry, it was just like such an impactful experience to connect with the student in that way, and like in such a hard time. Like I did not connect with every student. There were some kids that were just so difficult the rest of that 3-week stint that I was there, but just connecting with that student, like it made a huge impact on me, because it was like, okay, like this is doable. Like this is a thing that I can do, and that I want to do. And so that was like the last day of long-term subbing. That summer, I had spent a lot of time trying to look for a job, and I got hired at a fifth grade in a fifth grade classroom in Killeen, Texas. And I remember looking back. I read Harry Wong's First Days of School at the beginning of this, or all throughout the summer, and I was like, all right, I've got my routines. I am ready for my first day in the classroom as a fifth grade teacher, and it was a school where your fifth graders stayed with you all day, and so it's like I needed like 5 hours worth of lesson plans. First day comes, I meet all the students. Day starts at 7:30 and it goes till 3. I finished my lesson plans at about 10:15. My whole day's lesson plans was done at 10:15, and I didn't know what to do. We went through procedures, we played some games, I showed them around the classroom, and I was like, I don't know what to do now. And so thankfully, the assistant principal came and checked in on me, Katie Bohannon. She's actually the principal there now at that school. And she checked in and she's like, that's okay. We can give the students a tour of the school. We can do a little crafts, a get to know you game where students are doing these different crafts. And so that was when I think of that year, that was the first day. But when I think of that year, I distinctly remember that so much of my efforts went into trying to make sure that students were redirected whenever they were even remotely off task, trying to make sure that students knew that I was not having it, whatever they were doing, I was not having it if they were not on task. And so I remember, like, even in the hallway, the students would have to walk with their hands behind their back because they'd always be pushing and shoving and stuff, and it'd be quiet. And then if a student went giggled, I remember I would give them like this little teacher face. Fix it, please. And it's like the kids are chuckling. And so that was one of those lessons where, like, looking back on it now, it's like I didn't have to take myself that seriously. I didn't have to like ensure that students were on task and serious about learning and what we were doing and not a disruption in any way at all times. And so I started to lighten up. I do remember the very last day of school. I think by that point I had begun to lighten up a little bit. For whatever reason, this memory sticks with me. The very last day of school, the movie 300 was really popular at the time. And the students were like, when the students were doing this with each other, but then I decided to do it with them, they would say Spartans, and then they would go, oh, because, and that wasn't like the mascot of the school. That was just like part of the movie 300. And I remember on the very last day of school, I was like, Spartans, and then all of them were like, oh. I was like, dang, man, I wish I would have done that earlier in the school. That would have been so great for classroom community. And so I finished up my first year, and then in my second and third year there, still in the middle, the fifth grade classroom, I kind of count the middle school classroom as fourth through eighth. And so still in the fifth grade classroom. I stayed in fifth grade all 3 years at that school. That's when I also started to learn a little bit about more technology in school. I started the tech club. So like nerds like me that would be able to go and like learn how to code after school. That's when I started learning Scratch as a coding platform, because I didn't study coding in college. And then also that is when I started to actually film in the classroom. A lot of my YouTube videos lately have just been me filming in this space right here, but a lot of previous ones I would actually film at school with students, and that started that very first year that I was teaching fifth grade in Killeen. One of the first ideas that I got to film actually came from my teacher training. There was another fifth grade teacher, Mr. Benthal, who was training us in this alternative certification program, and he said that something that he did was he would ask his students to share a message with the world. In 3 to 5 words, what would your message to the world be? And he would make a little video out of it. And it was adapted from this photography project by this photographer named Robert Fogarty, and it's called the Dear World Project. And so I did that my very first year with my fifth grade students, and they were writing their messages to the world on paper, on their hands, on a little whiteboard. And then I made a video, and then I shared that video on YouTube and shared it with the students and their parents and everything like that. And that was like the very beginnings. That was 2011, the very beginning of putting YouTube content together, a teacher YouTube content together, and that was back in 2011. And so that continued, but really what brought me to where I am now, teaching truly like, middle school, traditionally seen as 6th through 8th grade, teaching middle school math and robotics and science, was my wife. She is a pediatrician, and she was going to be doing her pediatric residency at Dell Children's Hospital in Austin, Texas. And so we were about an hour and a half north and living in Temple. And so we're like, well, Austin's cool. And then I got connected to my current school, which was formerly called Cabelli, because my principal at my previous school, Ms. Tyson, her daughter was the head of school at a place called Cabelli. And I remember I was going to apply there, but I didn't even know that Ms. Tyson had that connection there. But it said that you needed 5 years teaching experience. I only had 3 years of teaching experience. And she's like, well, you need to apply. That place is right up your alley. They're really up about like innovative work and doing things that are different. And so like I was all about the technology, and I had started Flip Classroom and trying to do all sorts of cool little different things. And so she said it'd be a really good fit, and she would let her, daughter know like, hey, just check out Tom Gibson. She put a good word in for me. And so I ended up teaching there. I came in as a 6th and 7th grade math teacher and a robotics teacher. I had never studied robotics. And so that was an experience where I was like, okay, well, I can't come in here like claiming to be the expert, because that's not going to happen, because I'm not an expert in this. I am actually probably going to have to embrace a growth mindset about this, embrace a fact that I'm going to be learning alongside the students in this regard with the robotics. I did take a robotics kit home. It's the Lego EV3 robots. There's one right there, and that's Roger the robot. The Lego EV3 robots. And I remember playing with it the summer before, and then having my first semester. And I did a lot of projects that I found online that ended up being a total bust. And I was like, we couldn't figure out how to get it to work. And I was like, I don't know, like, are you guys figuring anything out? And so it was actually a good experience for the students to kind of see me learning as well. I knew enough to stay like one step ahead of them, because I did do my homework beforehand. But now robotics is one of my favorite classes to teach. And luckily, even though we are remote learning, Chris, I will see you later. You got to run to class. Try to pop back in throughout the day. Have a good one. I appreciate you stopping by, Chris. But teaching robotics has been one of my favorite classes, because it's actually given me an opportunity to make project-based learning like something that's a staple of a classroom. I feel it's harder to do project-based learning in a math classroom because you're trying to hit certain objectives. But with an elective and robotics, it's like you've got to build a robot that can do this, and there's so many things that they have to learn how to do within that kind of project. And then you get 4 projects throughout the semester. You know what you're doing in the whole semester, and it's a semester-long class. Luckily, even with remote learning, the kids are going to be able to take their robotics kits home, and so that's kind of what brought me where I am now. This year is the first year that I am teaching middle school science, and I posted on my Instagram stories a couple days ago that it's really hard to be a new teacher in a new content area again, because there are so many resources out there. Even if you join a Facebook group, which has been super helpful, and you ask like, does anyone have an idea of how to teach Newton's laws, you get like 40 different ideas, and you're like, and now you have to sift through, find the one that kind of makes sense and that you can do and that, like resonates with you and hits the objectives of what you're trying to do. And it's hard. I think there is really something to just like having people, curating resources for other people, which is what I hope to do, on this YouTube channel about resources and tech tips and insights, but also on my Instagram account. But just say, if you're kind of like out there and you're like, it's hard to find resources for what I'm looking for. And like, if on Teachers Pay Teachers, like there's so much garbage up there and you don't really know what you're getting until you buy it, which is kind of a bummer. You get like a thumbnail like that's that big, and you're like, this is a rubric, but I don't know if it's a good rubric. I kind of want to, I'm fine paying for it. I just don't know if it's going to meet my needs, which is kind of hard. So, but that's where I'm at. That's kind of my journey of what brought me into education and why I am teaching what I am teaching. I do want to end. We've got about 4 minutes left. It's a little bit of a short live stream. Let me see if my first camera here is okay. Yeah, we are working again. Always have a backup. I've got that GoPro backup and then another webcam just in case it all goes out. What I wanted to do, if you are here and you are a middle school STEM teacher and you do have something up on Donors Choose for your classroom, then put it in the link. But if not, then I will go ahead and just look on Donors Choose for a middle school STEM class to donate $50 to for what they're doing, and then we'll go from there. So let's switch to this. Isn't this fancy? I got this. The little switch changes like this, and this little microphone. You have no idea the hours of troubleshooting that go into making all this look smooth and stuff, but it's fun. I studied it in college, so I enjoy doing it. So Donors Choose is a website to support classroom teachers. And so let's find a classroom to support. You can filter by what you're looking for. So I am looking for math and science. We are looking for, let's see, grades 6 through 8, but I'm also going to include 4th and 5th grade because I kind of see that as middle school years as well. And I've got a soft spot for 5th grade, being that I taught 5th grade for the first time. All right. I don't know exactly how I want to do this as far as like which one to choose, since, I think this is the first show, and so it's going to take time probably for people to find out about it. But let's see what's going on. Maybe there could be one that with $50 I can actually pay for it. Or I can just, hey, look, okay, let's see. Digital resources needed. $50 is still needed. I could make this happen. Let's check it out. All right, so we've got Miss Von Hagel, grades 3 through 5. So that does count as middle school because there's some 4th and 5th grade in there. Title I school district. Majority of my students come from poor economic backgrounds, and all students receive free breakfast and lunch. They come from all walks of life and in totally different ways. I want to make learning fun and engaging for them. So let's see what she is looking for. She's got a project. She's learning virtually, special education services. That means I need plenty of resources that are digital to use during lessons and allow them. So I am constantly looking for ways to make learning fun for my students. Gift cards, and the gift cards Teach Pay Teachers will help her find students. Okay, so she's really looking for, okay, where would this go? Oh, it's just saying how it just gets separated out. She's really looking for resources for engagement, finding stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers. Looks like she's got some kind of science experiment up there. So, okay, let's go ahead and give to this classroom, and we can have her get the full, reach her full goal here. I am not going to put my credit card live here, but let me go ahead and do it. Do it here. I can insert this as proof that I am actually doing this. Use my business card. We'll do that. Remember, here we go. Pay the donation. Oh, I need to put my email address. All right. If you're just joining, we are donating to Miss Von Hagel's project so she can get some resources online to support her kids remotely, which is tough. I was just talking about how hard it is to find some resources, much less having the money to pay. So, zip code. How terrible would this be if I was just like live streaming my credit card and didn't even realize it? All right. Place my donation. And all right, so here we go. We can let her know why we did this. Tom from Texas. Hey, Miss Von Hagel. I'm a fellow middle school STEM teacher, and I just started a YouTube live show to support middle school. I'll put in parentheses because she's like, I'm not middle school, grades 4 through 8 STEM teachers. Part of the show is to donate $50 to a middle school STEM class in need. School STEM class on Donors Choose. And I saw your post and you needed $50 to reach your goal. I hope you find some great resources for your kids. Find some great resources for your kids during the challenging I guess I ran out. All right, there we go. Post my message. Let me change the thing just in case it shows credit card information again. Turn your donation to ongoing support. I won't do that yet because I would like to decide who I want to support, and then we'll skip that. All right. So it says thank you for donating, and then I guess I will share some of that later. So, all right. Well, this concludes the inaugural episode of the Middle School STEM Classroom. I really appreciate everyone that tuned in and stopped by. And I will be here next Wednesday at 8:30 Central Time. I know that's a lot of times maybe where teachers are teaching, but maybe you've got a prep period, or maybe you're in a different time zone, you're not teaching yet. But I appreciate you spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next live stream, hopefully. Bye-bye.